Hello and welcome back to Follow My Belly. Today I'm going to be taking you through a complete meal plan to make roast veal with a fresh and flavourful caponata on the side with creamy fondant potatoes. To start off, we're going to make a thyme, oregano and garlic butter that will be stuffed inside the joint to ensure it stays moist throughout the cooking process. To do this, we roughly mince 2 cloves of garlic and set it to the side, and then cube a stick of butter. It's then simple enough to mix all the ingredients together in a bowl until the mixture comes together to form one mass. You can do this beforehand, but don't refrigerate too much, otherwise it will be difficult to fill into the veal. Next up, I'm going to lightly butterfly the veal to open it up so I can stuff it. All you need to do is make a light incision into the cut and then again like so in order to give you some more space to work with. Be careful not to cut too deep, otherwise your filling will leak out during the cooking process. You want to take this chance at this point to generously season your veal. I'm using salt, paprika and black pepper here. Using a spatula, you then want to fill the inside of the joint before beginning to tie it off. Using butcher's twine, you want to tie up the joint in order to seal in your stuffing, as when cooked, a piece of meat will expand whilst heat brings out its juices. Tying it up keeps it from spreading out. Once this has been done, roll the veal in more seasoning. Here I'm using, once again, salt, thyme and paprika. Caponata is easily one of my favourite dishes to cook at the moment. With very little effort, you can make quite a lot of it, and it's a perfect accompaniment for meat, fish, or just to have on its own with bread. That said, it is also a dish with a variety of opinions on the best method to cook it. So, for my take, I use 2 medium-sized aubergines cubed into 2 centimeter pieces, which are then salted and set to the side in a colander over a bowl to allow for the water to be caught. Then proceed to dice the onions and celery and garlic and set to the side ready to be used later. Then you want to cut your red peppers and set them aside in a separate bowl. I saved all the green bits and leaves and I've put them in a bowl with 2 tablespoons of capers and a jar of pitted black olives. Depending on your time constraints, it's best to leave your veal out to come to room temperature before you put it in the oven. The one I used weighed just under 1 kilogram and I cooked it for 2.5 hours on gas Mark III, so around 160 degrees, but in terms of cooking times you want to take it as slow as possible. Before putting it in the oven, you want to sear the joint as much as possible to begin the cooking process so you get a lovely browned exterior to your roast. I sliced potatoes and placed them around the joint and seasoned with more thyme and oregano and allowed the whole thing to sit in about 2 centimeters of stock mixed with about half a can of IPA. I did this at around 1 hour of cooking and at this point used a plastic spatula to apply our homemade pesto to the top side of the cut. The final ingredient for the caponata are tomatoes without their skin. A quick way to do this is to score each one with an X and then plunge them into boiling water for no more than a minute. After this, it will be easy enough to peel away the skin and then chop the tomatoes. Use around 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a fairly large pan and begin by frying the aubergine to get some color on them. Once this has been done, remove them from a pan and set to the side and begin to fry the onion, celery and garlic. When these are soft, you want to add your pepper into the pan and begin to cook them down. You don't want them to become too soft, but also you are aiming for them to lose their crunch. I then added a tablespoon of sugar and 2 or 3 tablespoons of white wine vinegar into the pan and allow it to cook down before then adding the remaining ingredients and leaving them to cook together for around 10 minutes. Whilst cooking caponata, I removed the beef from the oven after around 2.5 hours so as to allow it to rest for the final 30 minutes. To take the sauce and drippings left in the pan and cook them down on the stove top with finely sieved cornstarch in order to make a nice thick gravy. And then cut a layer on top of the caponata with the potatoes on the side to finish.